Для вас я вдячний вам, вашій державі, за те, що ви підтримали нас у такий складний час. Що ви не залишились осторонь і не сказали, що все це не про вас. Бо насправді неможливо залишатись осторонь від того, що у 21 столітті у центрі Європи на мирні міста летять сотні, ви чуєте, це правда, сотні ракет і авіабомб.
Volodymyr Zelensky has attacked one of the largest food companies in the world, Nestle, for not cancelling operations in Russia in spite of what Zelensky has called as threats from Russia to European countries.
Неможливо бути байдужим, коли вбивають дітей. Станом на сьогоднішній ранок російська армія вбила 112 українських дітей. Good food, good life. Хороша їжа, хороше життя. Так звучить слоган компанії Nestle. Вашої компанії, яка відмовляється залишити Росію. І навіть зараз, коли звідти лунають погрози ще іншим країнам Європи.
Volodymyr Zelensky was in fact speaking in a rally outside the Swiss parliament, which included the president of the country, Ignacio Cassis. The Swiss president also lauded Zelensky's resistance against the Russian invasion. Efforts are underway to rope in China to condemn Russia. In a tweet, Ukraine's presidential aide has said that China should make the right decision to join countries against Russia in order to become an important element in the global security system. He also has called on the West to explain the scenario to Beijing. Now, Beijing has so far stayed out of the limelight. It has refrained from condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but has called for diplomacy to help ensure the end of the war. China has clarified that the state-to-state engagement is actually an absolute must to reach a ceasefire. It has also expressed deep concerns over the conflict. Meanwhile, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has raised concerns about the normalization of ties with Vladimir Putin, saying that this will of course be a mistake for Western nations to maintain ties with Moscow, similar to the mistake that they made during 2014 when Russia had annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine.
And that to try to re-normalize relations with Putin after this, as we did in 2014, would be to make exactly the same mistake again. And that is why Putin must fail. A victorious Putin will not stop in Ukraine, and the end of freedom in Ukraine will mean the extinction of any hope of freedom in Georgia and then Moldova. It will mean the beginning of a new age of intimidation across the whole of Eastern Europe, from the Baltic to the Black Sea.
Now, there is no doubt that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has emerged as a global figure. Ukraine's wartime leader has many fans across the world. His pictures and speeches can be seen circulating across the internet at all times. And now, there's also a toy version of Volodymyr Zelensky that's been made by a small American toy company. Take a look.
A toy version of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, made by a small suburban Chicago toy company, has made a big impact to the tune of $145,000. Based in Naperville, Illinois, Citizen Brick started making unofficial Lego figurines of Zelensky to raise money for the Ukrainian people after the Russian invasion started last month.
We make a lot of these parts by hand.
Owner Joe Trupia says what started out as a simple fundraising idea quickly ballooned into something much bigger.
Having sold out the first batch of them kind of immediately to people we knew, kind of our regular customers, we kind of thought we were done with it. And then all of a sudden started getting pings on the phone, and we saw that it was being reproduced on the Ukrainian Instagram page, which was kind of a shock. And suddenly we were getting a lot of followers from Instagram, from the Ukraine, and people messaging us, and it was kind of overwhelming.
The Zelensky figurines sold for $100 each, while a Molotov cocktail figurine decorated with the Ukrainian flag went for $20. Trupia says the funds from Citizen Brick sales will go to Direct Relief, a charity that claims to have sent over 30 tons of medical aid to Ukraine.
We've had a lot of contact from people in Ukraine, which is surprising, that they have the time and the kind of mind to contact us and say thanks, which is very humbling. And that we keep that in front of our minds when we're trying to do something like this.
Russia has defended its military activity in Ukraine as a special operation aimed at demilitarizing and denazifying its neighbor.
The speculations and theories filled the air and even the outer space when the team of 3 Russian cosmonauts arrived at the International Space Station wearing a yellow uniform, which was seen as a move of solidarity for the people of Ukraine. But the Russian Space Agency has issued a clarification saying that sometimes the color yellow is just simply the color yellow. Our next report gets you the details.
We're less than 30 minutes.
3 Russian cosmonauts arrived safely at the International Space Station on Friday and were warmly welcomed by 4 Americans, 2 Russians, and a German crewmate already aboard. But it was the color of the Russian crew's uniforms that caught the eye of Western observers. Were the brightly colored yellow and blue outfits a supportive nod to the Ukrainian flag? Russia's space agency Roscosmos on Saturday said no. On its Telegram channel, its press service said bluntly, sometimes yellow is just yellow. Director General Dmitry Rogozin was more acerbic on his personal Telegram channel, saying that Russian cosmonauts had no sympathy for Ukrainian nationalists. In a live-streamed news conference from the ISS on Friday, Mission Commander Oleg Artemyev was asked about the suits.
Every crew picks the suits, the overalls, on their own accord, so that they don't all look the same, but different. Now, it was our turn to pick the colour. The truth is, we had accumulated a lot of yellow material, so we needed to use it up. That's why we had to wear yellow flight suits.
Russian Mission Control responded,
Great, our congratulations. They look wonderful.
Rogozin has suggested that U.S. sanctions imposed in response to the invasion could destroy ISS teamwork and lead to the space station falling out of orbit. Russia invaded Ukraine, which has a blue and yellow flag, on February 24th. The ensuing fighting has killed thousands of people, devastated parts of cities, and caused more than 3 million Ukrainians to flee their homes, according to the United Nations. Officials at the U.S. space agency NASA have said U.S. and Russian crew members are aware of events on Earth, but that their work has not been affected by geopolitical tensions.
All right, on to some sports news now. And India's Lakshya Sen has continued with his meteoric rise in badminton by reaching the final of the prestigious All England Championships. The 20-year-old stunned the reigning champion Li Jia in a grueling semi-final clash. Now, Sen, remember, has been on sensational form in the last 6 months. He's won the bronze medal at the World Championships in December, and his consistent performances this year have seen him climb to the 11th rank in the world. And his stock has only grown in Birmingham. He's managed to knock out world number 3 Anders Andersen in the round of 16 before getting a walkover in the quarters. Sen faced some pretty tough competition in the Malaysian world number 7, but he was barely troubled in the opening game, which he took with a scoreline of 21-13. But Lee fought back in the second and showed his quality by forcing a decider with a scoreline of 21-12. The third game was a battle of attrition and went down to the wire. But then Sen showed his nerves of steel to seal the victory by clinching the decider with a scoreline of 21-19. He's become just the 4th Indian male shuttler to reach the All England finals and will now face world number 1 Victor Alexson, whom he had beaten in the German Open just last week. Well, that's all the time we have in this edition of the News Bulletin. Stay tuned to Beyond.
Palki Sharma Upadhyay reports from Tel Aviv, Colombo.
अरे गया नहीं अभी तक? गाड़ी की सर्विस कब से दी है यार? ये थोड़ी जाएंगे कहीं, ये तो गाड़ी की सर्विस करवाने के लिए कहीं जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। चिल, कोई गड़बड़ नहीं है। गो मैकेनिक पर पाए एक्सपर्ट कार सर्विसेज, 50 पॉइंट इंस्पेक्शन और 3 महीने की अनकंडीशनल वारंटी। डाउनलोड करें इंडिया का नंबर 1 कार सर्विसेज ऐप गो मैकेनिक।
गो मैकेनिक।
अरे गया नहीं अभी तक? गाड़ी की सर्विस कब से दी है यार? ये थोड़ी जाएंगे कहीं, ये तो गाड़ी की सर्विस करवाने के लिए कहीं जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। चिल, कोई गड़बड़ नहीं है। गो मैकेनिक पर पाए एक्सपर्ट कार सर्विसेज, 50 पॉइंट इंस्पेक्शन और 3 महीने की अनकंडीशनल वारंटी। डाउनलोड करें इंडिया का नंबर 1 कार सर्विसेज ऐप गो मैकेनिक।
गो मैकेनिक।
Joe Biden, now the 46th president of the United States, has a full plate in front of him.
Afghanistan has been the heart of American military power.
In a clear warning to China, India's military has now taken control of the country for 1 year.
What is happening inside the virology lab in Wuhan?
One ship was able to freeze global trade.
A traditional recipe. It's really very delicious.
It's code red for humanity. The alarm bells are deafening. Wildfires, floods, and hurricanes. Extreme climate events warn of impending doom. Is the world heading towards a climate catastrophe? Watch WION's Climate Tracker weekdays at 12 p.m. GMT, 5:30 p.m. IST.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert.
You have ignored us in the past and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses and we are running out of time.
Show us your faithfulness. Show us your trustworthiness. Show us your honesty. Prove us wrong. We desperately need you to prove us wrong. God help us all if you fail to prove us wrong. God help us.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine has affected the entire world, and West Asia exception. West Asian countries are caught in a bind between the West and Russia, but they are now wary to pick sides. They are charting their own foreign policy path. Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis. This is our weekly show where we bring you all the latest updates and stories from this region. Now, tensions between Iran and Israel are growing. Last week, Israel allegedly struck an Iranian camp in Syria, killing 2 Iranian soldiers. On Sunday, Iran retaliated. It landed 12 missiles on the city of Erbil in Iraq. The targets were what Iran calls spying centers controlled by Israel. But Iraq doesn't agree. It is accusing Iran of violating its sovereignty. We tell you more.
It was a quiet Sunday night in Erbil, the capital of Iraq's Kurdistan region. The silence was shattered by a barrage of missiles. raining down on the city. They landed near the sprawling US consulate complex. The explosions were heard from miles away. A total of 12 missiles hit the city, lighting up the sky. Soon after, Iran claimed responsibility for the attack.
Today, around 1:20 a.m., the Islamic Republic Revolutionary Guard Corps hit 2 spy centers for the Zionist regime in the Iraqi city of Erbil.
So, who was the attack aimed at? Was it the United States or the government of Iraq? None, says Tehran. It claims the target were 2 strategic centers run by Israel. Why? Apparently to avenge the killing of 2 Iranian soldiers.
Iran will not tolerate that a center near its borders becomes a center for sabotage, conspiracy, and for sending terrorist groups to Iran.
The IRGC had vowed to make Israel pay for their deaths. The attack on Erbil was aimed at achieving this. Iraq and the United States don't see it that way. They're calling it a serious escalation. Iraq called it a violation of its sovereignty, while the US claimed that Iran will be held accountable. Besides the fact that it may lead to an Israeli retaliation, this attack also risks the collapse of the Iran nuclear deal. It comes at a time when the US is weighing a deal to remove Iran's IRGC from the terror blacklist. Reports suggest that it has been a sticking point in the Vienna talks. Iran wants IRGC off the terror list if the deal is to be revived. Iran's Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, or the IRGC, is a major military, political, and economic force in Iran. It has close ties with Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. IRGC has over 190,000 active personnel. It boasts its own ground forces, navy, and air force, and also oversees all of Iran's strategic weapons. The IRGC designation is not directly related to the nuclear deal. Any such decision would be a bilateral understanding. But Biden could be walking a tightrope with any such move. It could lead to massive backlash among both Democrats and Republicans. So both Iran and the US will have to offer concessions. Neither move will be popular at home, but that's the cost of statesmanship. Currently, the West has been negotiating a new deal for 11 months. They are close to an agreement. In fact, Europe's foreign affairs chief has hinted that a new deal is ready. It just needs to be signed. But the Ukraine war and pre-existing tensions have cast a shadow on this. This nuclear deal could end the West Asian Cold War. But for that, both sides must swallow their ego. They must think about the long term. West Asia Bureau, WION.
Iran has released 2 British citizens. They have been imprisoned for 6 years. What for? Iran accused them of espionage. The charges were never proven. Now this comes at a time as Tehran has suspended talks with Saudi Arabia. Many are saying that the reason is the country's record 81 executions in a day. We tell you more.
Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe is home after 6 years, 2 flights and a long journey later. Her family looks forward to being normal once again. A happy moment for the British Iranian who was once accused of plotting to overthrow the Iranian government. Zaghari Ratcliffe was arrested on April 3, 2016, with her 22-month-old daughter Gabriella at Tehran airport. This was after she visited relatives for the Iranian New Year. Zaghari Ratcliffe was sentenced to 5 years in jail for taking part in a so-called sedition movement in Iran in 2009. Tehran's high-profile release 2 years later came as a sign of thawing relations and a nuclear deal revival that is on the works. Both Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe and Anousheh Ashuri are now free.
It's been very emotional, but also a really happy moment for the families, and I'm pleased to say that both Nazanin and Anousheh are in good spirits and they're safe and well back here in Britain.
It comes after UK paid $523 million. This was to settle a debt dating back to the 1970s. Tehran had then paid for a consignment of chieftain tanks, which was cancelled after the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The detainee debt deal required regional cooperation, including cooperation with Oman, where the payment was held. Analysts suggest that talks in Vienna made the deal possible, and the timing is crucial. With Russia's oil and gas reserves being sanctioned, the West needs Iran, and any deal works for both sides. Iranian oil could return back to the markets, helping offset high crude oil prices. Iran's thawing relations with the West comes at a time when Tehran has suspended direct talks with Saudi Arabia. The 2 West Asian foes had been engaged in dialogue. They had hoped the talks could ease tensions, but downplayed expectations of a breakthrough. The 5th round of talks was scheduled to be held in Baghdad. So what exactly led to the suspension of the talks? Iran is said to have unilaterally suspended it without citing any reasons, which brings us to a war where the 2 sides are clashing. In Yemen, Iran-backed Houthis are fighting the Saudi-led coalition for years. Now the GCC, or the Gulf Cooperation Council, is hosting peace talks, including all parties involved in the Yemen war, a proposition that the Houthis have rejected.
I confirm that invitations will be sent to all, and we hope that everyone will participate and not miss this opportunity.
Yemen's Houthi said it would welcome peace talks only if the venue is a neutral country. It also added that Saudi Arabia cannot be a mediator, given the fact that it is a party in the Yemen war. West Asia Bureau, WION, Wild is One.
Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more lined up for you in this edition of the West Asia Post. We're going to go to Saudi Arabia, the Emirates and Turkey. But first, let's take a look at what else is making the headlines across West Asia. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson meets Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh during a trip to the Gulf for talks aimed at moving away from reliance on Russian oil and gas supplies. The Turkish foreign minister called for an end to the bloodshed in Ukraine during a joint news conference with his Russian counterpart. Cavusoglu also called for an immediate ceasefire to allow the evacuation of Turkish citizens. Israeli forces killed 3 Palestinians, including a teenager, in separate incidents in the occupied West Bank and in the Negev desert. This was the latest in a flurry of deadly clashes in the region. Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati has said that he will not seek re-election in a parliamentary election scheduled for May 15. The statement has thrown Sunni Muslim politics in Lebanon into deeper disarray. The United Nations raises less than a third of the $4.27 billion in aid sought for Yemen. Among the 36 pledges, $7.4 million. West Asia is facing a severe wheat crisis over war in Ukraine. Most nations in the region rely heavily on wheat imports from Russia and Ukraine. The current war could lead to a severe food crisis in a region already under pressure. Over the last few weeks, the most popular question in a Russian Dubai-based magazine is, how can I get a UAE partnership? The Emirates is increasingly turning into a safe haven for oligarchs. Russia's ultra-rich are escaping sanctions by parking their yachts here and buying luxury apartments in the Gulf nation. We bring you the story.
This is the United Arab Emirates, often known as the playground of the rich. Now, with the Ukraine war, oligarchs are turning to the Emirates. It has emerged as a safe haven for their wealth. UAE crypto firms are being deluged with requests. Oligarchs want to liquidate billions of dollars of virtual currency. Some are using this to invest in real estate. Others want to turn their virtual money into hard currency. Dubai is the Gulf's financial and business center. It has long been a magnet for the world's ultra-rich. The UAE's refusal to take sides between the West and Moscow now presents a great opportunity. It has signaled to Russians that their money is safe there. One crypto firm has received lots of queries in the past 10 days, asking to liquidate billions of dollars of Bitcoin. The UAE is already home to 40,000 Russian nationals. The flow of Russian money into the Emirates is not new, but analysts say it has increased in the last 2 weeks. But it is difficult to track a significant uptick in investments. This is because most of it won't be visible. Buying property in the UAE is relatively easy. It offers investors a residency visa without needing local sponsorship. Paperwork to buy properties is minimal, and cash is king in the Emirates. Boats and planes belonging to oligarchs have also been arriving in Dubai. On the 1st of March, 3 yachts belonging to oligarchs were already in UAE waters. Other Russians seem to be looking for property here. There is an incredible demand from Russians for luxury apartments in Dubai. Over the years, the UAE has deepened ties with Russia. It has not matched sanctions imposed by Western nations, and its central bank has not issued any guidance yet. As a tourism destination, it has long been popular with Russians. Russians were among the top visitors, with around 730,000 Russian tourists in 2019. So the Russian oligarchs are now betting on this Gulf nation. They can count on the UAE to keep their bank accounts unfrozen for now. So with more and more countries sanctioning Russia's ultra-rich, it looks like the Emirates is now a safe haven for the oligarchs. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
The glorious silhouette of the minarets reaching into the sky is a postcard picture image of Istanbul. But this image has now been destroyed by a new construction. A construction site is ruining Turkey's skyline, sparking fury on social media. We tell you more.
These are the soaring minarets of the Süleymaniye Mosque.